Picture this: a tank so precise it could double as a giant sniper rifle, so tough it could shrug off a nuclear blast, and so comfortable inside that its crew doesn't just fight, they live, complete with a mini kitchen and even a toilet. That's not a sci-fi dream. It's the British Challenger 2, a steel beast now roaring across Ukrainian battlefields. But here's the twist: it's being used in ways its designers never imagined. Back in March 2023, Ukraine officially joined the very short list of armies to ever field the Challenger 2. Only the UK and Oman had done so before. Britain sent 14 of these machines, but not before putting Ukrainian crews through intense training at Lulworth Camp in Dorset, England. At the time, there were whispers of another batch being shipped later, though that's never been confirmed publicly. The Challenger 2's story goes back decades. Built between 1993 and 2002 by Vickers Defence Systems, now part of Rheinmetall BAE Systems Land, a total of 408 were made for the British Army, plus 38 for Oman. Fast forward to today, and the UK has been gradually phasing them out. Out of 227 still in service, 79 are headed for retirement, while 148 are being upgraded into the next-gen Challenger 3, a version fitted with a new smoothbore gun. The tanks sent to Ukraine appear to be from the older batch, still armed with the famous L-30A1 rifled cannon, a weapon tank crews swear by for its laser-like accuracy. To survive modern drone warfare, Ukraine's Challengers have been modified with slat armor on top, metal cages that help block aerial attacks. 14 tanks might sound small in number, especially in a war where machines are lost faster than they can be replaced. Russia alone has reportedly lost more than 13,000 armored vehicles, including over 4,000 tanks. Ukraine's losses are smaller, roughly one-third of that, but because they started with far fewer, often 10 times fewer, every destroyed tank hits hard. By the end of the first brutal year, Ukraine had already lost over half of its locally made T-64BV main battle tanks, a devastating blow that made foreign reinforcements like the Challenger 2 more vital than ever. When the war was raging at its peak, experts said Ukraine would need at least 1,500 tanks to have a real shot at pushing Russia back. So when Britain sent just 14 Challenger 2s, it barely scratched the surface, less than 1% of what was needed. But that small move ended up shaking things up far beyond the battlefield. Up until that point, most Western countries were hesitant to send heavy armor. The fear, provoking Putin. He had already drawn one of his so-called red lines, warning that sending Western tanks would spark a massive escalation, maybe even a nuclear response. But when the Challengers rolled in and the sky didn't fall, that red line suddenly didn't look so scary anymore. Soon after, the floodgates opened. Ukraine began receiving over 300 modern Western tanks, including US-made M1 Abrams and German Leopard 1 and 2s. Poland chipped in around 60 PT-91 Twardý tanks, while Poland and the Czech Republic supplied more than 400 Soviet-era T-72s. And as if that wasn't enough, Ukrainian forces even captured 17 advanced Russian T-90A and T-90M tanks right off the battlefield, turning enemy armor into their own. The Challenger 2, like most main battle tanks, was built for one purpose: to attack. With its thick armor and powerful gun, it was meant to spearhead advances, knock out enemy tanks, and crush fortified positions so infantry could move forward safely. That's how tank warfare was supposed to work, at least on paper. But this war has rewritten almost every rule. In the beginning, both sides stuck to traditional tactics: tanks charging ahead, infantry following close behind. Russia threw thousands of tanks into its early assault on Kiev in February 2022, hoping to steamroll its way to victory. It didn't work. Months later, Ukraine flipped the script with a stunning counteroffensive in Kharkiv, reclaiming thousands of square miles and proving that agility and smart strategy could beat sheer numbers. But just a year later, the entire game changed. The old rules of tank warfare were shattered almost overnight, not by bigger guns or thicker armor, but by something small enough to fit in a backpack. Ukraine unleashed waves of FPV drones, fast, cheap, and deadly, and they tore through Russia's armored forces like never before. These nimble little machines could hunt tanks from above, striking their weak spots with terrifying accuracy. In fact, it's estimated that two-thirds of Russia's tank losses now come from drone attacks. What kept many Ukrainian crews alive through it all was the Challenger 2's legendary protection. Its turret and hull are wrapped in chobham armor, also known as Dorchester, a top-secret British design that layers metals, ceramics, and composite materials to absorb and deflect hits. This armor is said to be twice as effective as traditional steel against high-explosive anti-tank rounds, and it's proven its worth on the battlefield. One Ukrainian crew described surviving a direct rocket strike from a Russian helicopter that punched a 720mm deep crater into the armor. The tank took the hit, kept moving, finished its mission, and even made it back for repairs before returning to combat. And the Challenger's protection doesn't stop there. It's equipped with a nuclear, biological, and chemical defense system built right into the turret, plus a design that reduces its radar signature, making it harder for Russian sensors to lock on. When under fire, it can launch 10 smoke grenades from both sides of its turret, or even pump diesel into its exhaust to create a thick smoke screen. But here's the clever part. That smoke clears in just 1 second, letting Ukrainian crews see and strike back faster than their opponents can react. Inside the Challenger 2, life is all about teamwork and tight quarters. This steel giant is run by a crew of 4: the driver, the gunner, the loader, and the commander. They're split across 2 main decks, surrounded by thick armor, electronics, and the roar of a Perkins CV-12 engine that pushes the tank's 60-plus tons across rough terrain. The driver sits front and center, stretched out almost flat, steering the beast using controls that honestly look a lot like a 90s video game controller. Behind him, the rest of the crew work inside the turret, the commander up high on the right, the gunner below him, and the loader on the left. It's cramped, loud, and anything but fancy. Yet compared to Russian T-72s or Ukrainian T-64s, it's practically first class. There's more legroom, better layout, and, get this, even a built-in kettle, multi-cooker, and toilet. Now, the toilet isn't glamorous. It's basically a bag system that has to be disposed of later. But imagine being in combat for hours, with drones buzzing overhead ready to strike at anyone who dares pop the hatch. Suddenly, that little bag looks like a lifesaver. The British have always taken crew comfort seriously, not just for convenience, but because the Challenger was designed to keep its team alive for up to 3 days after a nuclear strike if needed. Ukrainian crews have come to love these small luxuries, especially when compared to the Spartan conditions of Soviet-era tanks. But it's not all comfort. The tech inside this thing is wild. The tank's fire control system, built by a Canadian company called Computing Devices Koreos, uses dual 32-bit processors to calculate shot accuracy on the fly. It even adjusts for wind, humidity, and movement, ensuring that every round lands exactly where it should. For visibility, the commander gets a gyro-stabilized panoramic sight equipped with a laser rangefinder and 8 periscopes, giving a full 360-degree view of the battlefield. Both the commander and gunner use thermal imaging and night vision systems from Thales, capable of spotting a target, or even a rabbit darting through the woods, from miles away. The gunner's main sight can track targets between 200 meters and 10 kilometers, staying rock-steady even when the tank is in motion. But here's something to think about. Would you trust a computer to make every split-second decision in the chaos of battle? And how do you think crews keep their focus after being sealed inside a tank for days at a time? Listen to this from Stanislav, a loader in Ukraine's 82nd Airborne Assault Bukovina Brigade. It makes the Challenger 2's advantage crystal clear. If 2 enemy tanks show up, one at 1,800 meters and one at 2,300 meters, the crew lasers both targets. The computer remembers them, and when the commander chooses, the gunner flips between targets with a single button press. That kind of speed and choice, lock, swap, fire, is why Ukrainians prize these tanks. They turn a chaotic firefight into a calm table of options. At the heart of that precision is the 120mm L-30A1 gun, a long 55 caliber rifled barrel made from very strong electroslag remelted steel, lined with chromium, wrapped in a thermal sleeve, and fitted with a muzzle reference system and fume extractor. Unlike the smoothbore guns most NATO tanks use, the L-30A1 is rifled. The grooves make shells spin, which steadies them in flight and makes hits far more reliable at long range. That's huge when you're firing HESH rounds against buildings or soft targets and APF-SDS rounds against armor. HESH spreads explosive force and wrecks structures and light vehicles, while APF-SDS darts through heavy armor. Wait a second. If you are new to this channel and you like what you see and hear, please subscribe, like, and join the conversation below. If you're not convinced yet, subscribe and tell us how we can earn that click. We're all about getting better together. Let's move on. The Challenger carries about 49 main rounds, a mix of APF-SDS, L27A1/Charm-3, HESH, L31, and white phosphorus smoke, L34. And its turret can swing 360 degrees in about 9 seconds, letting it put precision fire almost anywhere around it fast. It also has two 7.62mm machine guns with roughly 4,200 rounds, the L94A1 chain gun near the main barrel, and an L37A2 on the loader's hatch. Optionally, a remote Leonardo Enforcer can mount heavier weapons, 12.7mm HMG or a 40mm automatic grenade launcher. So the rifle barrel plus the digital sights and fire control computer create a new job for these tanks. Not just leading charges, but acting like high-precision fire platforms to support infantry and shelling missions from standoff ranges. Think sniper-grade hits at distances measured in miles, but with tank shells. Quick question for you. Would you rather have one tank that can pick off targets from far away with surgical shots, or 10 tanks that slog forward and risk being picked off? And how do you think that changes how commanders plan an attack? These days, you won't find Ukraine's Challenger 2 tanks charging across open fields like in old war footage. Instead, they're parked a few miles behind the front lines, tucked beneath tree lines under Ukrainian control, hidden, patient, and deadly. From there, they act as mobile artillery, picking off Russian bunkers and fortified positions several miles away. Here's how it works. Ukrainian drones circle above, spotting targets and feeding exact GPS coordinates to the tanks. FPV drones correct their aim in real time, guiding shells right onto target, while larger attack drones strike nearby enemy strongholds. Once the area's been softened up, infantry units move in to finish the job. It's a coordinated dance of machines, drones in the sky and tanks on the ground. And the Challenger 2's sniper-like precision is what makes this strategy work. But there's a reason these tanks keep to the shadows. The range of Russian FPV drones means that even a few miles back, lingering too long after firing is asking for trouble. The moment a tank fires, Russian spotters start looking for it. So, Ukrainian crews have to move fast, shoot, relocate, and hide again. Still, that rifled 120mm L30A1 gun that gives the Challenger its legendary accuracy also comes with a major catch. Because the rifling makes shells spin, it wears the barrel out 3 times faster than the smoothbore gun used on the US Abrams, around 500 rounds versus 1,500. That means more frequent maintenance, which is a growing headache. Why? Because spare parts and ammunition are running out. The UK stopped producing rifled 120mm shells years ago, and no new L30A1 barrels are being made. If one breaks, the only option might be stripping parts from retired tanks, assuming those guns are still in usable shape. Meanwhile, trained mechanics familiar with the Challenger 2 are becoming harder to find as the UK transitions its fleet to the Challenger 3. Recognizing this, the British Ministry of Defence stepped in. In February 2025, it extended its contract with Babcock International Group to keep Ukraine's Challenger 2s running. The deal, first signed in 2023, now covers another 15 months of support, including repairs, spare parts, and most importantly, training Ukrainian crews to handle their own field maintenance. That's a huge relief for the 82nd Airborne Brigade, who depend on these tanks daily. Still, keeping them battle-ready is no easy task. By March 2024, just 1 year after delivery, reports suggested only half of Ukraine's Challenger 2s were operational, a stark reminder that even the toughest machines need constant care to survive this war. By early 2024, Only one Challenger 2 had been critically damaged, taken out by a Russian Lancet drone, and another was reserved for training. The rest that were out of action weren't lost in battle at all. They were simply waiting on repairs and spare parts that crews didn't have the time or resources to complete. For a tank this advanced, keeping it running can be just as tough as keeping it safe. Then, there's the challenge of Ukrainian terrain itself. Weighing in at 62.5 tons when fully loaded, the Challenger 2 is a heavyweight, about 7 tons heavier than the American M1 Abrams. But it's powered by a smaller 1,200 horsepower engine compared to the Abrams' 1,500. That extra bulk means that when Ukraine's famously rich soil turns to mud in spring and fall, these tanks can bog down fast. Power and traction become real issues, especially during long operations in the countryside. Still, don't mistake that for weakness. The crews who operate these machines, especially those of the 82nd Airborne Brigade, are fiercely protective of them. One commander, known by the call sign Hera, described the Challenger 2 perfectly. It's like a sniper rifle. You can hit targets from far away, stay hidden, and pull back before the enemy can find you. And when the dust settles after a successful strike, the crew can even brew a hot drink inside their armored fortress without ever stepping outside into danger. A small but welcome comfort in a brutal war zone.